to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to go over two topics. One being the new list that came out by PFF grading the off-seasons up to this point of all the NFL franchises and where the New York Giants fall on that list. Now, I always say PFF's not the most credible source, but it was nice to see somebody paint the New York Giants offseason in a positive light, being that all the major news outlets, ESPN, and most places where you go, bash the Giants whenever they get an opportunity. And I've been on record of saying that I think for the most part, the New York Giants have had a pretty good offseason. So we'll jump into that, and I'll give my reasoning as to why I think the New York Giants are ranked as high as they are on that list. I'm also going to jump into the rumors that the New York Giants may potentially be interested in bringing Markus Golden back. That is right. Of course, the New York Giants have spent the vast majority of their cap. If you go on Sport Track right now, and I'll pull up the numbers, I think it's about $18 million in cap. Of course, $13 million will have to be dedicated to the draft. Now, I think when I looked on the list, it didn't incorporate some of their most recent signings. I didn't see Colt McCoy on there, so it may actually be even lower than that. But somebody, I forgot his name, but the guy from Fireside Giants brought up a great point on Twitter yesterday. I thought it was a brilliant point, and maybe this could be the case, that maybe the New York Giants are waiting to sign Markus Golden until they figure out the contract details with Leonard Williams. Of course, Leonard Williams right now is making like $17 million a year on the franchise tag, but if they sign him to a 4-year extension on $12 million, it would give them an additional $5 million in wiggle room, and maybe that could be given to Markus Golden to bring him in, because it is a little bit peculiar that Markus Golden has not been signed yet on a long-term contract. But I'll get into what Jordan Rannon of ESPN said regarding Golden. Would I be opposed to bringing him back? No, not on a short-term deal where I didn't want to bring Golden back. It was a 3 or 4 year deal. But if you could bring him back on a 1 or 2 year deal, by all means, bring him in. We could use as many pass rushers as we could get, and it would set the Giants up even better for the draft. Maybe you could attack the offensive line in round 2 rather than going after an edge rusher because you feel comfortable with Fackrell and Golden and Zimenez and everybody else. I've also expressed that Lorenzo Carter, I think, would actually be better suited as an inside linebacker due to the fact that he's very good in coverage. But, of course, the coaching staff will have to, figure out exactly what they want to do with that. But bringing back Golden would just give the New York Giants more flexibility in season and in the draft. So it's something I definitely wouldn't be against for the right price. And at this point in time, it would be for the right price. I mean, the Giants don't have a lot of money left. Everything's been for short-term deals. I couldn't imagine him getting more than a 3-year commitment from the New York Giants, especially given his injury history and seeing the pattern that the New York Giants have gone through over, the course of this offseason. So if you get him on 2 years, 18, 3 years, 27, 1 year, $10 million, I'm completely for all those scenarios for bringing back Markus Golden. Would just be a guy, even though he may not fit this scheme perfectly, he's a guy that we know could get after the quarterback, that's for sure. He had 10 sacks last year. And, of course, I wouldn't be against that. Not at all. And with the improved coaching, you would hope maybe he could get better in certain areas of his game. But let's jump into some of the things I wanted to talk about regarding Markus Golden, regarding the list that came out from PFF, and telling you guys why I think the New York Giants rate as high as they do on that list, because I thought it was interesting because I knew that Blake Martinez didn't have a very high PFF grade. He's not good in coverage. I knew Bradbury didn't have I think he was in the mid-60s. But the Giants, I think what they incorporated was not just free agency, but the changes to this roster in terms of the players that they got rid of that were old veterans, the coaching staff they brought in, and I think they may even be factoring in that the New York Giants have a very young roster and they may be improving over next offseason. So let's jump into it. Let's see exactly what PFF had to say regarding the offseason as a whole with the New York Giants. But first, we'll start from the tweet with Jordan Rannon regarding Markus Golden. The interest in Markus Golden is there. Price hasn't been right to this point, but he's willing to be patient. Giants among teams monitoring. After all, this is a player who had double-digit sacks, was 6th in the NFL with 27 QB hits, and tied for 14th in tackles for loss with 13. Quality player on the market. And I've read reports that Markus Golden is willing to wait. It seems as if there's not a ton of interest out there on Golden, because if Golden was going to get a $13, $14 million contract, he would have gotten it already. And obviously, him and Clowney remains two of the bigger names at that position. He has ties to the New York Giants. From everything you heard last year, he wanted to remain with the New York Giants. So maybe he'd be willing to take a discount, or maybe he'd be willing to sign on a 1-year deal to prove it one more time before the market skyrockets next year, and then he sees the contracts that these guys are getting. You look at Shaq Barrett last year, not to say that Markus Golden would be capable of doing that, but if he thinks he's capable of having a 14, 15 sack season, he looks at the market going up next year. He might say, I might be better off signing a $10 million deal and then striking it rich next year in free agency. So maybe there is still a possibility if the Giants could finagle some things to bring Golden back. Am I banking on it? No, but I would not rule it out entirely yet. The other thing I want to talk about, guys, was the list. And I know it's a little bit small, but if you look there, the Giants right now, according to PFF, in their offseason rankings, Cardinals and Colts lead the offseason improvement index. This is not just talking about free agency as a whole. Obviously, free agency impacts this greatly, which is why I didn't pull it all the way down to the bottom. The Patriots rank at the bottom. The Patriots lost Tom Brady. The Patriots lost Jamie Collins, Van Noy. They lost a lot of pieces. That's why their improvement, went way down. If you look at the top of the list, the Arizona Cardinals, of course, made that great trade in acquiring DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe they figure a young roster is going to get better. The Colts made some very good offseason acquisitions. They rank second. The Dolphins are fourth below the Giants, who have made a ton of free agent signings. The Browns, of course, were very active in the market, and so on and so forth. But I think some of it has to do with the fact that, well, if you look at most of the teams, to improve, that means, it's obviously you're at an advantage when you're a very bad team because you only have room to go up. So part of the reason why I think the Giants are as high as they are, if I'm being completely fair, is because they were a very poor team. You look at most of the teams at the top of the list, they didn't have the best of years last season. So that is definitely part of the reason. And I think another part of it is the fact that they have a young roster, they have a new coaching staff, and they've made smart, efficient signings, something I've spoke to. They've replaced old, aging veterans with younger players. And I would imagine that the Giants will only go up these rankings after the draft, being that the New York Giants have 10 picks. They're picking early in the first round. So to me, so far this offseason has been pretty successful for the New York Giants. Do I think it's going to result in a Super Bowl next year? No, but I think we're headed in the right direction. We maintained our cap space. We actually probably improved the outlook of our cap space next offseason with some of the signings we've made. And yeah, it's just looking incredibly encouraging this offseason. And I wanted to give PFF credit. I usually go after them for some of the things they say, but I think that this was a very balanced list. And I like that they gave the Giants some credit, being that nobody else seems to. I think the Giants have had a good offseason. It's close to as good of an offseason as I could have expected. I didn't want 2 or 3 year guys on 5-year contracts because it would have strapped us to retain some of our players going forward. This was the right approach by the New York Giants, and I'm glad they did it the way they did. They will make splashes, but they'll do it incrementally, and they'll do it over time when the team is ready to make moves to compete. And some of my subscribers, I see in the comments, we've waited 3 years for the rebuild. How much longer do we have to wait? Well, it hasn't really been 3 years. Let's be real here. When Dave Gettleman came in, they were still trying to win. Now, you could certainly say that was not the right approach, and I will not argue with you on that. But, this is all up for interpretation. Some may say that Mara forced Eli Manning on Gettleman. Some may say that Gettleman legitimately thought that the best course of action was to keep Eli Manning. At the end of the day, the Giants should have moved on from Eli Manning in 2017. I've said that time and time again. As much as I love Eli Manning, as much as I thought he still may have had some gas in the tank, he didn't fit the timeline of this team. So, to me, this is really year 2 of the rebuild. You drafted your rookie quarterback last year. That was the beginning of the rebuild. This is now year 2, okay? And Rome is not built in a day. This year, hopefully, we improve, and hopefully by year 3, we're ready to go to the playoffs and start competing, and maybe we'll sneak in this year and surprise some people. But the Giants this offseason have had a pretty good offseason, in my opinion, and I think it hopefully will only get better after the draft, something that Gettleman has demonstrated he's very good at. And let's hope he gets the job done yet again like he did last year. Nobody could debate some of those players he brought in were very productive for rookies, even the people who hate him more than anything. So I think Gettleman will do a good job this year in the draft. I like that Joe Judge, Dave Gettleman, and the coaching staff seem to be together on a lot of things, and I think this team's headed in the right direction. I really do. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.